It's not only in Britain and Europe that the provincial armies and governors are facing problems, although those are among the most critical problems they face. Also in the East, for instance, Armenia. This is another locus of threats and problem. And Armenia, I don't have a map up right now, but you might be able to remember where this is. It's towards the eastern end of what is today Turkey. It's in Roman times a kind of a buffer kingdom between Roman controlled territory and the Parthian Empire. Well, at this time, around 60 or so, the Parthians had placed a member of the Parthian ruling family on the throne. In other words, a king related to the Parthian kings. His name is Tiridates. This actually happened a few years before. And Nero, in hearing this, had sent one of his trusted commanders to the east to deal with it. He was a general who had achieved quite a bit of success on the Rhine frontier in Germany, and he was sent to take charge of the situation with Armenia. His name is Corbulo, and he comes out again as another one of the heroes of Tacitus' narrative of these events. Tacitus, in fact, goes to some length to describe how Corbulo took charge there, arriving first in the Roman province of Syria, where he found that the troops had kind of been softened by several years of inactivity there and prey to what the Romans, in a kind of a stereotypical way, thought of as the temptations and luxury of the East. So he spent a year or more on the march, toughening them up and putting them through a lot of rigorous drills. This happened in around 55 CE. And then he did take to the field. He marched them forcibly across very rough territory to Armenia, where he confronted Tiridates, attacked and captured the Armenian capital. And then finally, in the year 59, because this takes a while, in the year 59, Corbulo undertook another extended march, 300 miles across more rough territory to capture the capital of the Parthian kingdom. Well, one of the capitals. The name is Tigranocerta is the name of that city. He then turned around and put a Roman client on the throne, but Nero had some second thoughts about how to handle this territory, and he replaced Corbulo in command, which of course Tacitus, with his skillful use of implication and reading between the lines type of language, makes it look like Nero's both incompetent and treacherous. It does look as if he was planning maybe to finally annex Armenia as a Roman province, but in the end, the new commander failed. He surrendered to a Parthian siege without waiting for Corbulo to come back and help him out, which was a huge disgrace. It was a devastating loss. Corbulo, again, is forced to take charge and negotiate an agreement with the Parthians, kind of putting a good face on necessity here. What ends up is that the Romans would recognize the Parthian choice for who should be king of Armenia, but in a kind of a symbolic act of political theater, that candidate for the Armenian throne had to travel all the way to Rome, where in a big public display, he received his crown from Nero. So that sort of covers up the fact that the Romans are accepting what the Parthians have asserted they want to happen in Armenia. The Roman armies then withdrew west of the Euphrates. The Parthians left Armenia ungarrisoned and unoccupied. So that's kind of a harbinger of things to come in the East. All of that, the resolution of that conflict was happening right around the year 66 CE. same time as a great revolt was really flaring up closer to home in Judea. The causes of this Judean or Jewish rebellion basically come from various intense local stresses, both economic, but also political and ideological. And of course, in religious literature, the ideological and the religious themes behind these actions are always stressed at the forefront. But it's not just a matter of the Jews resenting how the Romans treated their cult and their religion. In fact, all classes of Jews by now probably had reason to resent the Romans. Well, some more than others, but a lot of them are now coming around to a more hostile anti-Roman point of view, including many people among the comfortable urban classes in Judea who for a long time now had not been too upset about living under Roman rule. Right now, though, the situation was aggravated by a series of incompetent procurators. Procurator is the imperial representative who's governing a small province like Judea instead of a senator. A bunch of them had been harsh, cruel, and incompetent. They also had to face a lot of social unrest and people like the assassins. They were called Sicarii, which is a Greek word meaning knife men, the stabbers, the Sicarii, and the zealots, people who are proclaiming the nationalist aspirations of the Jewish people, essentially wanting to bring back the independent kingdom of King David from back in Old Testament times. These people are calling for the violent eviction of the occupiers. One way that this has made this whole series of events has had its impact on the course of Western history is that the early Christians, some of the people who shaped the evolution of Christianity, including the Apostle Paul, were caught up in these events. Paul was in the city of Caesarea when the rebellion broke out in open there. And the storm really broke out with rioting there over the issue of the high priest in Jerusalem refusing to sacrifice in the temple in honor of the emperor. So this is unusual. The Jewish people, who are very often so unruly and gregarious and at odds even internally with each other, they're divided up into various sects and ideologies and competing groups. Under the conditions of Roman rule, they have put a lot of those divisions aside and unified to try to throw off the Romans. The result, a small Roman garrison was massacred, which was a huge surprise and a devastating blow for Roman self-esteem in the region. Nero felt the response had to be forceful. He sent a new governor for Syria and he put a new commander in place. His name is there on this slide, Titus Flavius Vespasianus. Remember him. He will be in charge of the military response to this Jewish rebellion. For now, however, we're going to move on. While all that was happening, Nero was otherwise engaged. He was in the middle of a glorious tour of Greece where he felt it was the only place that he could be properly appreciated. Appreciated, of course, for the things that he felt proudest of, namely his artistic and athletic and other Greek-style accomplishments. He's touring around Greece, engaging in all kinds of competitions, as many as he can find. And in the end, we hear he won more than 1,800 first prizes in things like chariot racing, on-stage performances, and other competitions. But he had to break that off when the news came of this revolt in Palestine and some other reports of unrest. He returned home to Rome early in the year 68, and then by March of that year, he ended up landing in Naples, which was an old Greek colony, but was now, of course, firmly incorporated in the Roman city network of Italy. In Naples, he had more bad news. He learned that a person named Gaius Julius Vindex, he pronounced the V in Latin as if it was a W. We can call him Vindex. Gaius Julius Vindex, who was a Gallic person, a Gaul himself, but he was also the governor of the Roman province of Gallia Lugdunensis, had now raised his fellow Gauls in a revolt against Roman rule. Gallia Lugdunensis is on this map over there towards the western part, the left-hand side of the map, and that's the core of the Roman provincial structure in Gaul. Lugdunum, the capital of that province, is the modern French city of Lyon. A lot of things hang on this rebellion, but also a number of questions, especially this question for us. Is this really a nationalist rebellion, a nativist, you might say, rebellion of Gauls trying to get rid of any trace of Roman presence and Roman authority in the region? Or did Vindex and his fellow Gauls involved in this just dislike the way Nero and his representatives were handling things? Did they just want to replace Nero with a better emperor? It seems that that may likely be the case, especially because Vindex was in communication with and actually cooperating with other Roman commanders of nearby provinces, including somebody called Servius Sulpicius Galba, who was the Roman governor in one of the provinces of Roman Spain, Hispania. And Galba at this time also took the opportunity to acclaim himself a new status. He proclaimed himself legatus senatus populique Romani. And I'll translate that for you. Sorry about the Latin there. Legatus means representative of, and literally it means chosen one. Usually it's used for the chosen representatives of the emperor, their man on the scene, representing the emperor himself. The imperial legate, that's used a lot in imperial administration. But in this case, Galba is leaving off the implication that he's the emperor's representative. Now he calls himself senatus populique. He calls himself the representative, the legate of the Senate and the people of Rome, which is a blunt statement aimed at Nero, isn't it? There's another fellow, Marcus Salvius Otho, not very far away. He's governing Lusitania, which is the far western province just to the west of Spain, roughly similar to what is now the country of Portugal. Otho is also supporting Vindex's rebellion. So we see a lot of people who essentially represent Roman interests, but who think that they could be much better represented by somebody answering not to Nero, but either to another emperor or to the Roman people and Senate as a whole. So this gets a very widespread footing, but these rebels eventually ended up being confronted by very powerful military response. The Rhine armies, the Roman armies along the Rhine River in Germany, under the leadership of a general named Virginius Rufus. This is a critical point in the transition of the empire, in the evolution of the empire. And at a critical point in this rebellion, Rufus's troops turned to him and they said, "We think you should be the emperor." In other words, they directly offered him the principate. He declined. Maybe luckily for his own longevity and good health. He said, "No, I don't think I should be emperor." Meanwhile, Galba, in seeing that the rebellion is being put down, is thinking of taking his own life and committing suicide. But before he actually did it, he learned in June that Nero was dead, that the Senate and the Praetorians were proclaiming him, Galba, as the new emperor. When we come back, we'll see how some of those events came to pass.